What is your opinion of the women's strike at Citizens National?
Are you taking my picture?
Yes.
No.
It was an explosive time.
Women weren't supposed to speak out like we were.
Something within them just rebelled.
And so it was time to take a stand.
On December 16th, 1977, in Willmar, Minnesota, 8 women, employees of the Citizens National Bank, walked out of their jobs and went on strike.
They were indeed the first bank strike in the history of America. These were 8 women who had taken an action in their lives and had stood up. 8 women together alone.
It was the last straw when they hired another man and wanted us to train him for management position. We had done this many times in the past, and the men would move right up the ladder to management, and the women were still down at the bottom training everybody that came in.
So I'm Irene Wallen. I was a head teller. I had been there like 9 years, 10 years. Doris had been there 10 years. We thought, hey, wait a minute. We have people here that can do that job without a whole lot of training because we'd been there so long. But they wouldn't hear of it.
If we're qualified to train him in, then why aren't we qualified for the job?
On coffee breaks, they started to talk. Tellers and bookkeepers. They were treated unfairly, passed over for promotion, paid less than men, and expected to give overtime without pay when needed.
No, there was many things. Comments made by the big president.
Mr. Persh told us that we weren't the chief breadwinner in the family, so why should we get what the guys get?
Like he had been quoted, that the men would have to take their dates and pay for their meals, and so they needed to have more money. They would support the household, and so they needed more money.
We felt that we were not being heard.
And we complained.
And what happened?
We're told we're not all equal, you know.
We're not all equal, you know.
We're not all equal, you know. He said that many times to people.
I guess I was raised that you should be acknowledged for your efforts and in the case of a job, then reimbursed fairly for your efforts.
You know, it's like, equal pay for equal work.
And one of our colleagues, Irene Wallen, is kind of a champion of making people aware that what we earn during our lifetime forever is an issue for us. I mean, it's because our Social Security is based on our wages that we earned. And so if we earn less, that means a woman gets less in retirement.
You know, it's really something very simple. We all are angry about what happened and we want to do something to change it.
First, we filed a grievance with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Yeah, this is your EEOC file.
Oh.
That had the response to employees in it.
I went to one of the negotiations.
We'd be all at the table. They would turn their back to the table and read newspapers to show that they didn't need to listen to us.
So we soon found out we were not going to go anywhere with this. So that's when we started talking about going on strike.
I met Lee and Mary Beth in 1982.
What does Irene do?
Irene is taking care of Rocky, her husband, who's now 90 years old. But everybody's retired. Sandy's retired, Taryn's retired.
Oh, little man, little tushy. Where's his penis? I'm a former actress. Got my first big success in the film Detective Story, which starred Kirk Douglas. I remember going in front of the Un-American Activities Committee, headed by Joe McCarthy, and what happened is that they blacklisted all the left-leaning actors. And so from that day, I could not work in film or television. And so my life became an activist's life. So at 34, times had changed. The hippies were in, free love was in, and I got a notice from the committee that I was no longer blacklisted. The first picture I did was In the Heat of the Night with Sidney Poitier. I got my first Oscar from my last big film, Champ. I was 50 then, and I would not be hired as an actress after 50 in Hollywood. And so I became fascinated with directing. Mary Beth Yarrow was my neighbor in Malibu. I think we were best friends at the time, weren't we, Mary Beth?
Yes, we were.
Mary Beth and I were best friends.
I was standing at the checkout counter at the grocery store, and I looked down, and there on the front page of the LA Times was this headline that said, Willmar 8, cause celeb. And I took the article and read it, and as Peter and I were driving over Malibu Canyon,
Peter Yarrow, the famous singer, was her husband.
I said, I would really love to take a tape recorder and go and talk to these women. And Peter said, well, instead of taking a tape recorder, why don't you go with a 16mm camera and make a documentary film?
And so I said, well, can I direct it for you? And we can go to Willmar and film these women who are on strike.
When I came to first meet with them to ask them if they would be interested in allowing us to do their story, there was some reservation, I'm sure.
We couldn't believe that they were going to do this, that it was going to be anything. But then Mary Beth Yarrow, she was from Willmar, so she knew the town, the city. She grew up here.
Willmar is named after a man by the name of Leon Willmar, who was a London financier. And here we are now at the Candy Ojai County Historical Society, where it says, keeping your heritage alive. And I find it an interesting juxtaposition that these 8 women are a part of this heritage and story of Willmar.
When you went in to film Willmar 8, what were you hoping to capture?
Well, documentary is documenting. All you can do is hold up a camera. If the situation is interesting and alive, you've got something.
When we started with the strike, there was a real sense of excitement.
We did not think it was going to last long.
And 10 days and 2 weeks went by.
We thought they'd have to talk to us.
But that didn't happen. The strike continued then for a couple years. We went through 2 winters.
It was cold.
Extremely cold.
We went from Malibu, which is always summertime, to, I don't know, was it 40 below?
I think the coldest day we were there was 70 below wind chill.
It was like the coldest period that Willmar had ever experienced up to that point. And that was the weather that these women were striking in their ski suits.
Snowmobile suits, like Irene's purple one back here.
And their ski boots.
A couple of us went through a couple pairs of boots.
And their mufflers and their hats.
You had to stay warm, and you dressed the part.
It was so cold that the cameras would freeze, and then they'd have to go across the street to the grocery store that was there at the time and thaw them out.
When I went up to speak to people in the street to say, what do you think of the Willmar 8? My mouth froze.
And so we had to take turns going back to the labor home and get warmed up, and then they'd come back, and the next 2 or 3 would go and get warmed up and come back.
The Willmar labor home was our headquarters, or occasionally, if it was really bad, we would take turns going into a heated vehicle. Yeah, those days were very much the hardest, but then summer created the opposite, where it was extremely hot outside.
So we went from frostbite to bug bite, back to frostbite, back to bug bite.
From that driveway to that driveway, back and forth. That's all the farther we went, so.
How many steps did you say it was?
16.
Was it? I don't know.
Do you want us to sing our song?
Oh, I don't know if I remember.
Here we go, girls. We're going to sing this song now. Are you ready? You want the words? They are embedded in our brain. Okay, here we go. We'll never stagger, we'll never fall. We'll show the bank they can't win 'em all. Marching, marching, day by day, we'll fight till the bastions fall. La 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 la. And you start it over again. It isn't fun after you sang it 1,000 times.
At least you wrote it in a lower key.
The first year, no one missed unless you were sick.
Because we were not going to let that bank be without us out in front of it.
Some days you felt like you didn't want to participate anymore, that you wanted to just go back to a normal life, but you didn't want to let the other women down.
There were days, I'm sure, you just wanted to call and say, no, I won't be there today. But with so few of us, we couldn't.
We're not like another union local in that they're probably, and most of them are from 200 to 500 members, maybe more. So they have that many people to run their strike. They have a committee for publicity, they have one for raising money, they have one for picketing. We do it all.
And then this was the button we wore. Which makes no sense to you, I'm sure. Oink, oink.
What was the oink oink part again?
Well,
They were piggy. They were piggish.
they were piggish, yeah, for claiming all the money and not paying us back. So we called them that. That's probably the worst we called them, was pigs.
Honestly, it's very boring. We tried to entertain ourselves.
And we played games on the picket line.
We played, it was called Picket Line Club. Yeah, we crushed a can and we'd kick it back. That's when I think I was kicking. And we'd make goals and we had a little bit of fun.
We had people drive by and honk and wave. And we also had people drive by and not so nice a thing coming out of the car.
We had one fella say, go home and take care of your babies.
Teenagers making comments like smoke pot, get high, and that sort of thing.
One day we had a lady come up and she said, you ladies were making more than I am. I'm making $1.75 an hour cleaning rooms at the nursing home. And that's all I deserve, she said. Oh, I couldn't believe she said that. Of course, we went back and thought, wow, how are we going to gain support if this is the way things are out there?
As the women looked for support from the outside world, in the beginning they had the women's movement who came to march with them.
We had a different union group stop and would picket with us.
But after a year and a half of being out there, the AFL-CIO faded away and the national women's organizations also didn't come.
Because it got pretty tight. We weren't getting much money. And I had 3 kids. Sylvia had 2, and it was close.
By not working, their families were really put in a financial chaos and stress.
What's the one that's out of your budget right at this time?
Anything over 23 cents a can, but I was looking at the vegetable beef, and that was a little bit more.
You were always together, and you talked about a lot of things. Maybe if you were having a problem at home or whatever, you could discuss those things and know that people weren't going to to let it go any farther.
Okay, who is really short this payday? Who is really in trouble?
I just don't know what to do. I really don't.
Yeah, there was plenty of nights that we'd come home in tears because the day hadn't gone that well.
We're going to make it through this thing, you know. Oh, yeah. One way or another.
It was touchy time. You were really either up here or down here. Mm-hmm.
Their quiet kind of bravery and this kind of camaraderie that they had was the most important element of this.
Kind of the evolution of all that is we became our own family in a sense.
That's what kept us together all that time, and then of course we got closer and closer.
We don't get together all the time or see each other all the time, but you feel it once we're back. Yeah.
Other people gave up on us or failed us. We never gave up.
What were you saying about the magazines were you in?
Both of them, People and Us.
That's a couple of them.
We're in both of these. Let's see if we can find it. No.
We were quite pleasantly surprised that there was a lot of news coverage of us. When it became national and international, it was like, blew our minds. I think the longer the strike went on, media seemed to be more and more interested in it because probably how stubborn we were. I don't know.
So how did it feel to be featured in an NBC Movie of the Week?
We walked the picket line through the bitter cold of 2 Minnesota winters.
Matter of sex.
A matter of sex, it sounds like something entirely different than it was, believe me. And we were on Phil Donahue. Glennis and I went to Phil Donahue.
We'll be back in just a minute.
It became a political issue, a social issue, a union issue, and a women's issue, all bundled up into one package. And we were the package, the 8 of us.
So you want a picture of us? We need to be close.
Okay. One of our greatest honors, too, is the Teamsters from Canada and Toronto put up an 8-story building, housing development in our name.
These are pictures of our time in Toronto. Oh, was it cold. These are the people that put up the apartment building. Written across the front of the building is Willmar 8 Co-op Housing. It's just really nice. At that time, and I don't know how it is now, but they were unionized big time. I mean, they were believers. And our mayor at the time told me that he and his son went up there and they went through it. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Where were you when we were walking back and forth? Why didn't you come and ask us what was going on? Nobody did.
Our strike ended when the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, they recognized that there were actions that the bank took that were not equal and fair, but they didn't really rule in our favor.
When we found out that we had lost the National Labor Relations Board hearing, we were all in tears.
The women were not given back pay, and they would be hired only as there were openings in the bank.
I was called back to the bank after I had gone back to school and had secured another job, so I never did return to the bank.
I never felt like we lost. I always say that, we didn't make a big impact, but we made a dent.
Can I quit now? This is the hard part.
They lit a light for women in banking all over the country.
We changed things in banking industry.
I'm so proud of it. And even though we didn't, as a little group, win, we kind of think, I do anyway, think that we won because we spread that word far and wide that women were being put upon because they weren't making equal pay. When we went out on strike, we were like way down in the 30s, 30 to 40 cents on a dollar. So we've climbed in 46 years. We still aren't at that dollar for dollar, but we've made some headway.
Because of the timing with the women's movement, we were definitely an influence on those changes that came about.
I think women of today, the conditions have improved a lot, but women still need to fight for their basic rights.
It is a tectonic shift on abortion rights. The U.S. Supreme Court today remade the legal landscape, throwing out the precedent laid down 50 years ago in Roe versus Wade.
A woman cannot get an abortion in many states.
Well, I think we went backwards a little bit with Roe versus Wade and some of those things. I think we backed up a little bit.
It didn't even dawn on me before it came up that something like that would be reversed. It's almost like voting rights, the same thing could happen with voting rights under the right circumstance, which is extremely scary. I just was in disbelief over that and very, very much saddened for it.
Sandy, Sylvia, this is really nice back here because these were always behind glass. Have you ever seen this poster?
When the Barn Theater did 9 to 5 a few years ago, they had an event for us, and then I think that's where these posters came from.
I think you're right.
My boots. I told them they could keep them forever.
We've had a lot of young people during History Month, National History Month, do want to do interviews with us. So we've met here and done that.
So I quick dug out the boxes of things that I had and brought them out here. So that's kind of where they've been digging through the boxes of everything I saved. I'm donating them now to the Historical Society. I've given them a couple of other things along the way too, and I think it's important because the kids can come here and look in there and see what they can find.
Let's keep that together.
So I give the students ahead of time this Willmar 8 questions and answers so they could get a head start on what they were going to ask.
Because they were repetitive.
Yes, very much so. We never dreamed that I would still be talking to you today. Let's say I'm 85 years old and I'm still talking about the strike. And it's a good feeling that people are remembering.
No, very intense crying.
Oh, yeah.
That's happened, but
back in the day you would have gotten some of that.
Yep.
Or if you make us watch the documentary.
Yep. Yeah, if you make us watch that, that's
we'll cry.
There'll be tears. Bad news.
Good afternoon, everyone. I trust you've had a nice day in Willmar and enjoyed the bus ride, and you're in Willmar on a nice day. My name is Val Swanson. I'm a retired instructor from Ridgewater College. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Willmar 8. Here's a DVD, right? Anyone who wants to look at that. And we're very lucky this afternoon that we also have 4 speakers who will be coming on after the documentary.
Housewife, Minnesota,
Yes.
children, probably in the church choir, the whole business.
Yeah.
In what union are you now?
Welcome to the Willmar Bank Employees Association Local 1.
You formed your own then?
Yes, we did.
Were you ever involved with any political activities before?
No. Nothing.
No, I thought politics were boring. No, not at all. Not in anything. The most I was involved in politics was to vote.
Everyone that's left of the Willmar 8, they're still our family.
2 of the 8 have died. Doris Beauchart was the first, and then just recently the youngest, Glennis Terwisha, died as well.
2 years ago, my awareness was in a different place. My head was just totally wrong. And a feminist was a woman liber, was somebody who was out of control and just totally strange, kinky if you were.
Marching, marching, day by day, we'll fight till the bastions fall.
How about a nice hand with those girls that stood out there and marched around in the cold and rain, sleet and snow? Like I said earlier, they got more guts than most men do.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I think my legacy would be I tried. I tried.
You know what I'd like to do, honey? I know you're thinking of a question to ask me, but I would like to read the names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
These are the women of the Willmar 8. Doris Beauchart, Irene Wallen, Sandy Tremmel, Tara Novotny, Sylvia Erickson Cole, Jane Guthias, Shirley Solyanchis, Glenys Terwisha. These are the heroines. Heroes or heroines, whichever.
I don't think I'm going to do anything overbearing today. We'll see you. See you around, yes. That was fun.
This program is made possible by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.